They say if you date someone for 5 years and still don't know everything about them, you're either blind, stupid, or in love. I guess I was all three. Before I tell you the full story of the strangest day of my life, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like our video. Help us reach as many people as possible. Thank you. My name's Claire. I'm 34, a high school English teacher in a painfully average town in New Jersey, where people go to die inside, but still smile for PTA meetings. I teach Shakespeare to kids who barely read memes. And until recently, I thought my life was, I won't say great, but it was manageable, quiet, predictable, safe. I had my tiny apartment, my cat named Sylvia Plath, because irony, and my boyfriend, Adam, who I thought was, my person. Adam was the kind of man who knew how to make an impression. He had a crooked smile, the kind that made you feel like he knew a secret about you before you told him anything. He smelled like expensive cologne and unresolved trauma. I met him in a bookstore, which should have been a red flag already. No straight man in New Jersey reads voluntarily. But there he was, pretending to be lost in The Picture of Dorian Gray. I was charmed. I was doomed. We started dating. He was a marketing consultant, he said, whatever that means. Always busy, always in meetings, always traveling, and somehow, always with one eye on his phone. But he was sweet. He remembered my birthday. He brought me coffee just the way I liked it. Black, bitter, and disappointing, like my childhood. He even listened when I talked about my students, which was rare. Most men hear, "I'm a teacher," and assume I bake cookies, wear cardigans, and call people sweetie. I do none of those things. I grade essays like a drill sergeant, drink wine like it's NyQuil, and haven't believed in sweet since 2009. Still, with Adam, I felt seen, or I thought I did. He never really let me into his world. I chalked it up to him being private, or introverted, or, emotionally constipated. But I had no real reason to question him. I wasn't desperate to get married or have kids. I just wanted a partner. Someone to come home to after spending all day explaining metaphors to teens who think Hamlet is just a boring emo boy with a sword. So 5 years went by. 5 whole years. And then came parent-teacher conference night. Honestly, I didn't even want to be there. It was raining, I had a migraine, and I'd just finished reading an essay where a kid tried to argue that Macbeth was low-key based, but it's mandatory. So I showed up, dressed like a drowned librarian, trying to look alive under fluorescent lights. My classroom smelled like whiteboard cleaner and desperation. The last appointment on my list was for a new student named Ben. Transfer from another district. Bright kid, too bright for this school. Kind of shy, always scribbling in a notebook. I liked him. Reminded me of me before I lost the will to dream. I looked at the clock. 7:42 p.m. Almost done. Just one more parent, then I could go home, cry into a microwave dinner, and fall asleep to true crime podcasts like any healthy adult. There was a knock on the door, and then my entire life did a backflip off a cliff. In walked Adam, holding an umbrella, dripping rain, wearing that stupid smirk. "Hey, babe," he said, like it was a casual Sunday morning and not a psychological thriller. I blinked, laughed, thought maybe I was hallucinating from exhaustion or toxic expo marker fumes. He looked confused, or maybe caught. I couldn't tell. My brain was glitching. "You're here for the conference?" I asked, every syllable sticking to my tongue like glue. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, for Ben. Ben the quiet kid. The one who sat in the back and wrote poems about dead birds. The one whose last name was Carter. Adam Carter, Benjamin Carter." No, 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 no. "Wait," I said. "He's your son?" Adam's face did that thing liars do where they try to look sincere while panic shooting behind the eyes. Claire, can we talk outside? I stood up so fast my chair screeched across the floor. Outside? What are you gonna do? Explain how you accidentally had a whole-ass child and forgot to mention it for 5 years. Ben, thank God, wasn't with him. Because if that poor kid had walked in while I was losing every ounce of sanity I had left, I would have quit on the spot. Adam raised his hands. I didn't forget. I just didn't tell you. Oh. Well, that makes it better, I snapped. You didn't forget. You just deliberately omitted the fact that you have a kid. And by the way, a wife? He hesitated. I have never wanted to throw a stapler at a human head more in my life. She's not. It's complicated, he said. Every liar's favorite genre of fiction. I stared at him. My mouth was dry. My hands were shaking. My body felt like it had been hit by a truck full of betrayal. You're married, I said, and your son is in my class. And you never thought to tell me? It wasn't supposed to go this far. There it was. The truth. The ugliest sentence in the English language. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Like I was a project. A side quest. A hobby he accidentally got too deep into. I laughed. Loud. The kind of laugh that sounds like crying but scarier. And then I told him to leave. No screaming. No slapping. No tears. Just leave. He did. Of course he did. And I sat there, alone in my classroom, surrounded by posters of Emily Dickinson and quotes about honesty, wondering how I missed every sign. 5 years. 5 years of texts at odd hours. Business trips that didn't make sense, missed holidays, vague stories, and I believed him. Because I wanted to. Because hope is a hell of a drug. Because lonely people will believe anything that sounds like love. I spent the next few days in what I can only describe as a hangover without the party. You know that foggy, nauseated state, where your head throbs and you feel like you made every wrong decision a person could possibly make in a single lifetime? That was me, except I didn't even get the dignity of cheap tequila to blame. I called in sick, which wasn't hard. My voice had disappeared somewhere between heartbreak and rage. Sylvia Plath, my cat, stared at me like she'd known all along. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. She's always had better instincts than me. I lay on my couch, scrolling through Instagram like a masochist, hovering over Adam's profile, which was suspiciously clean. No wife, no kid, just aesthetic coffee cups, sunsets, and one blurry photo of the back of my head from 2 years ago captioned, "My favorite view. Kill me." He didn't try to contact me. Not once. No calls, no texts, not even a meme to soften the blow. I guess ghosting is easier when you've already been living 2 lives. I kept imagining how many times he'd kissed me goodnight, and then gone home to tuck in his real family. How many dinners he skipped with Ben to take me out for overpriced pasta. How many PTA meetings he actually attended where he pretended to be just another responsible dad and not a walking soap opera. But the real kicker? Ben came to class every day. Same seat, same hoodie, same quiet, melancholy vibe. And I couldn't say anything. Not to him. Not to the school. Not to anyone. Because how do you explain to your teenage student that his dad has been sleeping with his English teacher for 5 years? Spoiler, you don't. I considered quitting. Really. I opened my email at least 3 times to type up a resignation letter, but then I thought, why should I be the one to disappear? I wasn't the liar. I wasn't the one living 2 lives. I wasn't the coward. So I stayed. And the universe, in all her vindictive glory, decided that wasn't quite enough punishment. Because a week later, I was called into the principal's office. Now my principal, Mr. Darby, is the kind of man who thinks cargo pants are formal wear. He's well-meaning, but clueless. like a golden retriever who wandered into school administration by accident. "Claire," he said, motioning for me to sit. "I wanted to give you a heads up. There's been a complication. If I had $1 for every time someone called my life a complication, I could retire in shame by now." He slid a paper across the desk. It was a formal request for a parent-teacher conference. Again, with Adam Carter. Of course, I smiled. Or maybe bared my teeth. It's hard to tell these days. "Right," I said. "Because our last meeting went so well." Mr. Darby frowned. "You two have met?" "Oh, we go way back," I said, crossing my legs and resisting the urge to burn the building down. "Years of history." "Well, great," he said, oblivious. "Then I'll schedule the meeting for this Friday at 4:30. Because yes, nothing screams emotional closure like a second serving of humiliation." Friday came, and with it, Adam. He looked tired, which was good. Misery loves company, and I hoped he was absolutely drowning in it. "Claire," he began, as soon as the door shut. "I'm sorry." "No," I said. "You don't get to start with that. You don't get to begin with sorry. That's something you earn after you explain why you lied to me for 5 years and enrolled your son in my class without telling me." His shoulders sagged like a man who suddenly realized he's not the main character. "I didn't plan this," he said. "Ben's mom and we're separated. Technically. We've been co-parenting. I didn't know he'd be transferred here until it happened. I thought maybe I could handle it." "Handle it?" I echoed, incredulous. "What were you planning?" "To do? Just wait until I accidentally assigned him an essay on Oedipus and figured it out myself?" He winced. "Good. That one landed. I know I messed up. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd leave. And I didn't tell Ben because, well, obviously." I stared at him. This man had lived 2 separate lives like it was just another spreadsheet. And here he was, looking at me like I was supposed to understand, to forgive, to comfort. "Do you love her?" I asked. He paused. That pause told me everything. "You're a coward," I said. "You didn't just cheat on her. You cheated on me too. You made me a mistress without my consent. You stole 5 years of my life and gave me lies wrapped in roses." "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "Oh, good. The greatest hits." "You didn't mean to hurt me," I echoed. "Just like people don't mean to drive drunk. But they still crash. They still ruin lives." He sat in silence. I leaned back in my chair and smiled that unhinged smile I'd perfected over the past week. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to tell Ben the truth, because he deserves that. And you're going to stay out of my classroom, my email inbox, and my existence. You got 5 years of my life. That's more than most people get. You don't get 1 more second." He nodded, slowly, finally looking like a man who understood what he'd lost. "Claire, goodbye, Adam." And just like that, he left. Again. Only this time I didn't feel hollow. I felt like a woman who had survived a fire and stepped out with her hair singed but her spine straight. I wish I could tell you that after Adam left, my classroom, my life became a montage of empowerment. You know, the kind with Lizzo playing in the background while I burn old photos and redecorate my apartment with throw pillows and feminist vengeance. But instead, I cried in the staff bathroom. For 10 minutes, blew my nose into the scratchy school-issued paper towels, and went right back to grading essays about The Great Gatsby. Because that's what heartbreak really looks like, grading teenagers who think the green light is a traffic signal. I didn't hear from Adam again. At first, I kept waiting. Like some tragic Greek chorus might show up and declare a third act, redemption. But all I got was silence, and honestly, that felt louder than anything he could have said. Ben, though. Ben stayed. I couldn't look at him the same way. Not because he did anything wrong, but because he became a mirror I didn't ask for. One that reflected back every lie, every stolen second, every night I believed I was special. And he reminded me, painfully, that love isn't just messy. It's blind. And sometimes really freaking dumb. But the weirdest part? Ben got better. Not just academically. Emotionally. He started talking more in class, volunteering answers, writing essays that didn't feel like they were stapled together with grief. One afternoon, he stayed after class. Everyone else had left, and I was erasing the board like it mattered. He lingered near the door, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Ms. Lang?" I turned, bracing myself. "Yeah?" He hesitated. Then, "Thanks. For just being decent." It took everything in me not to cry again. I wanted to tell him that decency was relative, that I had slept with his dad, that I was the opposite of decent, that his entire existence made me feel like a human dumpster fire in a Target cardigan. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded and said, "You're doing good, Ben. Keep going." He smiled. One of those small, crooked, barely there, teenage smiles that means more than it looks. And then he left. That was the last time we spoke. A month later, the school year ended. Seniors graduated. I clapped in the sun and tried not to look for Adam in the crowd. I didn't see him. Maybe he had the decency to stay away. Or maybe his wife found out and turned him into mulch. A girl can dream. Summer came and went in a blur of iced coffee and awkward therapy sessions, where I explained to a woman named Dr. Pamela that I wasn't a homewrecker, just catastrophically naive. "Have you considered," she asked once, "that Adam might have loved you in his own way?" "No offense, Pamela," I said. "But if that's love, I want a refund and a restraining order." She nodded like I'd passed a test. By the time fall rolled around again, I was not fine, but functional, which is about as good as it gets. In your 30s, post-scandal, with a cat who actively judges your life choices. My classroom was the same. The desks, the faded posters, the permanent scent of dry erase markers and hormonal despair. But I wasn't the same. I was quieter, sharper, less likely to believe anyone who said they weren't on social media. I stopped looking for closure. Closure is just an overpriced myth sold by self-help books and bad rom-coms. The truth is, some people leave a hole so precise it feels surgical, and you just build around it. Then, one Friday in October, it happened. I was walking to my car when I saw her. Ben's mom. I knew it was her. She had the same bone structure. Same eyes. She was standing next to a red SUV, arms crossed, watching me like she knew everything. Which, apparently, she did. "Claire, right?" she said. I froze. My car keys felt like lead in my hand. "Yes," I managed. "I'm Jennifer. Ben's mom." I opened my mouth, unsure if I should apologize, run, or fake a seizure. She beat me to it. "I know who you are. I know what happened. All of it." The air between us was heavy with the weight of unspoken years. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I didn't know. About you. About Ben. I would have—" "I'm not here for an apology," she interrupted. "You didn't make vows to me. He did." She stepped closer, and her voice lowered. "I left him. After I found out. Not just because of you. Because of all the others. You just happened to be the one that mattered." I swallowed. I didn't want to matter like that. "I know." Silence. Then she said something that cracked me open like glass. "Ben liked your class. A lot. He said you made him feel seen." Almost cried again. God, I was tired of crying over this family. Take care of yourself, she added. We're not all monsters. Just some of us. And then she got into her SUV and drove away, like she hadn't just dropped an emotional nuke into the parking lot. That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and opened a new Word document. It was time to write. Not about Adam, not about Ben, not even about Jennifer, but about myself. About the woman who thought she had it all figured out and still got blindsided by someone who thought lies were a form of love. I wrote until 3 a.m., my fingers sore, my heart a little less hollow, because maybe the only way out is through, and maybe the only way through is to finally tell the truth, even if it's ugly, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. It's been almost a year now. I teach, I sleep, I feed Sylvia Plath, I keep going. Sometimes I still think about Adam, not in the way I used to. Now, he's more of a warning sign than a memory, like a flashing light on a dark road reminding you to never trust a man who says he doesn't do labels. And Ben? Last I heard, he transferred schools. I hope he's okay. I hope he writes an essay one day about the year everything fell apart and somehow he still found a way to grow. I hope he tells the truth. Because someone should.